Hello, everyone. Good morning. How's everything going? My name is Harry. Now we are waiting for the entry into this garden in Hangzhou. Have you been to Hangzhou? Here is the name of the garden. Bilingual, Chinese and English introduction. Fenyang Villa. Who's Villa? All right. Let's go inside and have a look. It opens at 8 o'clock. The door opened right on time. I'm going to show you the West Lake from here. And first of all, now we're in this garden. Let's enjoy the Chinese garden. Yesterday we drove from the village we have lived in the past half a year here to Hangzhou. It took us almost 3 hours across two different provinces. I mean, we didn't really drive across two different provinces, but I mean, the village and Hangzhou, the two places are in two different provinces. We actually drove across the border of the province. And the village where we're in actually is in Anhui province, and here we're in Zhejiang province. And Hangzhou is the capital city of Zhejiang province. I am here with my family. Yesterday I started my Hangzhou tour after almost half a month break. And in that half a month, our family in a small village also came down with the COVID. And I was doing okay. My daughter, 6-year-old daughter, she suffered more. And maybe my wife was in the middle, while my son didn't have any influence. But it took a long time for us to recover. And I'm not going to say that we are completely okay, although we are actually negative. But look, in the past 1 month, who in China has not been infected by the COVID? I guess maybe only 2 people or 3 people out of 10 people in the past 1 month have not contracted the virus. That's why we are here. And of course, it's not because we've got it and we are done with it. It's just because yesterday it was my wife's birthday, so we decided to go out a little bit to have a different fun for ourselves and also for our children. All right, let's keep moving from here. And yesterday we came here to Hangzhou. We also visited my mother-in-law and children's grandmother, my wife's mother, on the birthday of my wife. Thank you, Laurie. Thank you, Lisa. We are in Fenyang Garden. I showed you the name of this garden. It's free to enter. It's located right beside the West Lake. Have you been to Hangzhou? Have you heard of much of Hangzhou? Again, this is the capital city of Zhejiang province. the most affluent province of China. It's a coastal province, of course. You know, in China, the most developed part is on the east coast. And now we are maybe 3-hour drive away from Shanghai. Of course, Shanghai itself is a municipality, is a municipal city. And here is the capital city of a province. We are now walking in the corridor of this garden. There are openings in different shapes, typical feature of a Chinese garden. This is a technique in building a Chinese garden to make the small look bigger, the simple look intriguing. Do you see the effect? Oh, thank you, Lisa. Yesterday, yes, we met my mother-in-law here in Hangzhou. She has worked in Hangzhou since maybe almost 2 years ago. And we bought a birthday cake and children celebrated with their grandmother. And this morning, before we came out, we also met my grandmother again. And she now works in a company, and she works as a cook. She cooks the food for the company staff. Okay, now we are seeing part of the West Lake. You can see a long causeway there. This is the longest causeway in the West Lake that separates this lake generally into two parts. Now we are looking at the inner West Lake, the relatively smaller part of the West Lake. Actually, beyond the causeway right there, there's the major part of the West Lake. It's much bigger. This causeway is called Su Causeway in Chinese, Su Di. Su is the last name of a well-known poet who was also once the governor of this region in Song Dynasty of China, where Hangzhou belonged. And there you can see a pagoda. It's a relatively modern pagoda, but it is at the site of an old stone pagoda that was there in ancient time. You can see two structures standing quite high there. The one on the right is the pagoda I just mentioned. It's called Leifeng Pagoda. It's a tourist attraction. A lot of people go there, and they like to take. Actually, yeah, some people take the steps, but actually, this modern pagoda was built recently with the elevators inside. People can take an elevator to go to the top floor to see the panoramic views of this lake. And on the left, now in the middle of the view, you can see another structure. It is actually located on a small mountain or hill. And that one is actually the city god temple of Hangzhou. The city god temple. It is where people, it is another tourist attraction. People go there to, probably they prefer to go there more on Chinese New Year to wish for a good New Year. It's a city god temple. It is a place to enshrine the patron saint of the city. In this case, a city. And now in the middle of the view, you can see another thin pagoda. And that one is still in stone. So it's more archaic. It's older in style. But that one is very thin. It's like an elegant lady standing there. Well, the other one I showed you initially Leifeng Pagoda is like a man. This is what people like to imagine of. It's it's bigger. Well, regarding the original form of the pagoda, the Leifeng Pagoda, it was actually indeed also a very stout stone pagoda, different from the one I just showed you. All right, let's keep moving from here. We are in Fengyang Garden of Hangzhou. Originally, this place was a private mansion. It was built originally in Qing Dynasty, 1850s. Then it was owned by a merchant, a silk merchant in Hangzhou area. By the way, Hangzhou, a lot of people maybe are not very familiar with Hangzhou. Actually, I would say if you say Shanghai is New York, my interpretation is Hangzhou, in a sense, is just like maybe Philadelphia in the USA. It's actually a very important city in China. But if you have to compare, yeah, Shanghai maybe does carry more international bearing, just a little bit more. But this is such a subtle difference that can be only observed by, um, you know, observant Chinese people. I believe a lot of people, especially Chinese people, prefer even Hangzhou more than Shanghai because, look, there's more nature here. The lake, a lot of gardens, landscapes, bridges, and also a lot of museums. Maybe people don't realize that Hangzhou has many more museums and also in different subjects than Shanghai. Here we can see a big formation of rocks. These rocks were brought here from a lake, limestone rocks from a lake in this region. And they were put together to form an artificial mountain. And the people here built a pavilion at the top of the artificial mountain for them to chill out, enjoy the views. We're the only visitors now in this garden. It opens at 8 o'clock, and there you can see a corridor. If there's an Indian summer, I would say now we're actually in the Indian winter, by which I mean it's very comfortable in a winter day. We're just waiting for the sunshine. I think it is a sunny day. The sun will come out hopefully soon. Then we will see what I mean, a comfortable winter day here. Not that cold, but this is actually just because it's relatively warmer these days in winter, but we are expecting a drop of temperature again in just a few days to the lowest point, minus 5 degrees, under the freezing point, minus 5 degrees Celsius. The West Lake is probably the most poetic lake in China. You can see birds and especially egrets, the white egrets. And just now when we came here, we saw some egrets perching by the streets near the water. So there is a more integration between man and nature in this city. I'm not sure if you can see, of course, in this city, there's also the central business district, commercial area, residential quarters. It's a huge city. Hangzhou actually has a population of over 10 million. This is only less than half that of Shanghai, but it is still a big city. And actually, Hangzhou's jurisdiction is bigger than that of Shanghai. I mean, if you take the suburbs of Hangzhou altogether, you will see this city is actually more than twice as big as Shanghai is. That is a lot of people, yes, Lisa. Yeah. But in China, there are a score of cities in China with population over 10 million. 哟，它现在没有通嘛？我记得以前是通的啊，没通。Here is Crooked Bridge. Thank you, Barbara. And again, let's compare Shanghai with Hangzhou. Shanghai's emergence is more recent. In the late Qing dynasty, Shanghai emerged as a trading post, and it was kind of opened by the British after the first Opium War. That was 1840, yeah, year 1840. And 3 years after the beginning of the Opium War, Shanghai was opened as a treaty port by the British. That was 1843. But Hangzhou, long time ago, was already an important city in China. It was once the capital of different kingdoms throughout the history of China. And most people in China, they know that Hangzhou, at least in the Southern Song dynasty, that it was almost 900 years ago, was the capital of relatively weakened China, because then China, the Song dynasty, was kind of a split, and the northern regions of Song dynasty were basically invaded by the nomads who came from the present-day Russia direction, Mongolia, and northeastern China direction. Therefore, the royalty moved. They were forced to move to this city to settle and for the dynasty to continue. And that was the beginning of the Southern Song dynasty from the Northern Song dynasty. And Hangzhou then was the capital. So you can see, you can imagine there are some remains, heritages left from the Southern Song dynasty of Hangzhou. Maybe not original structures, but they have come down as some sort of continuation. All right, now let's move on from this garden to other natural landscapes by the West Lake. Is there fish in the water? Yes, there are. Yeah, sorry, we. 游客直播，没事的。上面也可以走吧。Now we are in a different attraction, and that attraction is given a poetic name. In Chinese, 4 characters, 曲院风和. Look, in the Southern Song dynasty, 1127 to 1279, an official brewery using the water. And this is the name of this attraction, Breeze Ruffled Lotus in Quyuan Garden. In present day, there are 10 famous attractions around the West Lake, each in a poetic name. And just now we saw one, 曲院风和, Breeze Ruffled Lotus in a Crooked Garden. Now let's walk in it. Yeah, there were fish in the water. We saw some red carp, not carp. We saw some red koi fish in the pond, but they were quite lazy. They didn't want to move. Huh? How old are the trees? Betty, before we entered this garden, we saw a tree that was labeled saying 300 years old, a camphor tree. And here, these trees are taller. No leaves. These are kind of cypress trees. It's a kind of coniferous tree, and I'm not sure how old they are. You can see the height, maybe 50 years old. Anyway, you know what? It's actually Hangzhou, historical city indeed. But after the Republic period of China, that is between 1912 and 1949, there was a huge renovation done to the surroundings and also the West Lake itself. We saw old images of Hangzhou West Lake being quite different from today. And I don't think this garden looks like that old one. So I believe those trees were probably replanted later. I guess they are maybe 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, something like this. Oh, thank you, Laurie. Before the sun comes out, it's still a little bit chilly, and my wife just now complained over the cold wind. Let's have a look at the West Lake again. And here you can see a willow tree. That reminds me of another poetic spot that we went to visit yesterday afternoon for the tour. And yesterday we started from a place called Liu Lang Wenying in Chinese. Again, 4 characters. A lot of set phrases and proverbs in Chinese language are in 4 characters. And Liu Lang Wenying can be translated into orioles singing in the wavy willows. The place I'm standing at reminds me of the place we visited yesterday. No orioles singing, but there are egrets flying.不能乱跑啊，要注意安全。好好走路，没事吧？ All right, let's keep walking, and this is a better way to keep yourself warm. The Chinese New Year is coming. I believe Hangzhou, like Shanghai, is getting quieter. There's traffic leaving this city a lot. I mean, Hangzhou, 10 million population. A lot of them also migrant workers from different nearby provinces of China. And I used to tell you that when I did tours in a small village of my wife's hometown in Anhui province, that a lot of people there, they actually go to Hangzhou as the destination of their work as a migrant worker. And obviously, my mother-in-law is a case, and she is in her early 60s. Yeah, I'm still struggling with some minor effects of the COVID. So the itchy throat sometimes makes me want to uh, clear my throat, cough a little bit. Are these boats fishing? These boats are for tourists. And usually you can find two types of boats for tourists. One is a hand-rowed boat. The small ones, maximum capacity is for 6 passengers, and the people can pay 150 yuan for a boat for 1 hour to go around in the West Lake. 150 yuan, about 20 US dollars for 6 people, not bad. Yeah, and the other type is a bigger boat. It's more like a ferry boat, and people can take that boat to some attractions located in the middle of the lake. Not to that causeway, because usually people, they just walk there or they can drive there. But further beyond the causeway right there, there's the major part of the West Lake, and in it you can see some islands. There's one major island with some scenic attractions on it. People go there to visit, and the way people to get there is to take the boats. They can take the tourist big boats to get there, and usually they spend maybe 1 hour in the island to see different attractions. Yeah, I mentioned how Hangzhou also has a lot of migrant workers from different provinces. And yesterday when we drove here, we just saw how the traffic was in the opposite direction. That was going to different town, small villages in the province. They were leaving from Hangzhou. It is there's the spirit of the Chinese New Year that you can already feel everywhere. Mm, but this is a special one, another special one. Since the year 2020, after the outbreak of the COVID, every Chinese New Year has been quite special, and this one, people expect to get the peak of the incidence of COVID, maybe around the Chinese New Year time. Although I already mentioned that actually most people have already got it. Because of the West Lake, located in the middle of the city, people, a lot of people, young people, they like to take a bike. There's a shared bike system in the city. People take a bike to go around. It's very convenient, and it's also very pleasant for you to do on the weekend. You can just hop off at any time and rest in a nicer spot. That is a lot in Hangzhou. How are the people in your hometown, especially the elderly? Betty, it is Chinese New Year is the most important festival, and usually, yes, people, they go back to the hometown to celebrate with their family. And in a village, you see a lot of old people. So it is now when the younger generation go back from big cities to their villages in hometown to spend some time with their parents. But there's also another form of celebrating the Chinese New Year now, as a lot of people have already settled in big cities, and they find it just more convenient to live. They usually, some people, they now take their parents in the old village out to where they live in a city to spend the Chinese New Year. But of course, in China, I would say there is also something in between. And just regularly, not particularly to Chinese New Year, people, you know, sometimes they have their parents relatively old, maybe in their 60s, 70s, to live with them in their home in the city. Therefore, their life can be better taken care of, like babysitting, looking after the children, and also cooking, buying food, etc. I would say Chinese society is more family based. I mean, people like to uh, live together, which is something different from uh, maybe people do in the United States and in other Western countries where people attach the independence as something more important. In China, it's a bit different. People like to stick together. This is something you can also find in maybe in a public space. People like to stick together. They like to go where there are people. We're approaching the Sioux Causeway, the longest causeway in the West Lake. I wish it was more like this everywhere. Okay, Monique. Yeah, I mean, it's very important to spend time with your family, but living regularly is a different matter. It's not easy, and to be honest, I don't think there are more benefits uh, in just living together regularly between different generations. To be honest, mm, but of course, I definitely appreciated the time spent together by the family. That's very important. And just now, I saw a big fat squirrel climbing the tree over there. Don't know where it is going now. All right, now we are approaching. 来来，往前面走。The causeway, the Sioux Causeway. Maybe closer ties between grandchildren with the grandparents. Yes, yes. Family definitely is very, very important. Have you been to this city, Hangzhou? Have you heard of this city? Well, have a look. This is a reclining branch or what of a tree. It's still robust tree stretching out to the West Lake. Look. This is a camphor tree. Yeah, it's still alive. It's actually very strong. It's very lushy. There are two trees here together. The one on the left is a camphor. The other one here is a cypress. One is indeciduous. The other one is deciduous. We are about 3-hour drive away from Shanghai. There's a duck just now. The duck dived into the water. And now in the city of Hangzhou, there are 7 subway lines. For 10 million population city, you need to have some subway lines. Well, actually, Shanghai now has easily over 20 subway lines on the way to 30. Well, the first subway line in Shanghai actually was completed in the year 1991. You won't believe it. The first subway line in Shanghai was built in 1991. And now we have something close to 30 subway lines. Hangzhou has less because the population is less, and also because maybe the city has a huge suburb, while relatively smaller downtown, and there's also the lake in the middle of the downtown. Not easy for people to build the subways, and I remember for many years there were only 2 subway lines in Hangzhou, and they were struggling with the 4th subway lines, and in the construction there were some accidents due to the softer foundation under the ground in this city. But now anyway, they've got 7 subway lines. Thank you, Kathleen. This city is where Alibaba is headquartered. Jack Ma used to be a tour guide in Hangzhou, and his interest with business and also how he got inspired by foreigners and foreign businesses started actually in this city when he was a tour guide, offering to be tour guide for foreigners that he saw traveling in this city, Hangzhou. Jack Ma, but Jack Ma, since the year 2000, actually 20, actually before that, towards the end of 2019, Jack Ma hasn't appeared very much. Typical story of Chinese merchants. If you look at its history, you will see how it could be. Like in Qing Dynasty, there were a lot of merchants here in Hangzhou, and there was not a single big merchant who was not backed by an official behind. This is a typical story of Chinese between the business and the power. So when there's some change of power or something unstable in power, the merchants will take some cost. All right, now you can see on the left the Sioux Causeway. We are very close to the Sioux Causeway. Let me take you there to walk a little bit on the Sioux Causeway. It is the longest causeway running across this lake. And by the way, the West Lake, I haven't told you that it's actually a UNESCO heritage site. It is one of the few UNESCO heritage listed lakes in a city. This is it. It looks like a typical Chinese painting of mountain and the water. You can see those views on the far end are depicted by the different shades of black and white. Typical black and white washing painting of Chinese. The size of this lake is roughly 2 kilometers by 3 kilometers. Thank you, Monica and Betty, and thank you for everyone who have joined this tour. The Sioux Causeway, as the longest causeway in the lake, is about 2.8 kilometers long, 3 kilometers. Obviously, the causeway can be built straight, just like how a crow flies. But the lake is probably 2 kilometers by 3 kilometers. All right, there's the Sioux Causeway right in front of us now. It is a Tuesday morning. Thank you, Katie. People here in Hangzhou are quite rich. I told you that this is the capital city of the most affluent province. And Zhejiang, as a coastal province, in near modern time of China, have always produced a lot of merchants, businessmen. And there are more ties between here, the Chinese manufacturing, with the world. There are many factories here in this province. And one of the famous small town here, but big for the world in terms of manufacturing of small commodities is Yiwu. And Yiwu is actually in southern or central Zhejiang province. It's in this province. It's the largest town in the world for small commodities manufactured here in China. A lot of dealers from over the world in small commodities go there regularly to get their products, the supplies of their products. And there are also many clothes, electronics companies here. And now you can see in the middle of the lake there's an island, and it is the island where tourists like to go to visit. There are some attractions with poetic names. And beyond you can see the city, the skyline of the city. And there you can see a lot of office buildings, shopping malls, streets, both old and new. And further beyond, there are residential quarters. But of course, there are residential neighborhoods interspersed in the city, right behind the skyline over there. It's a big city, very complicated. There's another island. Now we're actually walking on the Sioux Causeway. Again, Su Causeway is named after a poet, scholar, official, surnamed Su, and his complete name in Chinese is Su Dongpo. It's almost a household name because every person in China, when you are a child, you always recite some poems composed by this scholar bureaucrat who lived in Song Dynasty almost 1,000 years ago. And he was once the mayor or the governor of the prefecture of this area where Hangzhou belonged to. And when he was the governor here, he initiated the construction of this causeway. And actually, the original purpose for building of this causeway was actually to dredge the lake. And they used the silt and the mud they dug from the lake to build this causeway. And the causeway, after completion, was named after him. At the beginning of the causeway, there's a statue of him. But let's see. You know, that man lived almost 1,000 years ago. Nobody actually knows what his image was really like. And also in Chinese painting, you see that it's not very realistic. It's more illusory, black and white, expressionist in Chinese way. All right, this is the causeway. It's quite long. Some people in the morning here are exercising, jogging. Come on. Thank you, Connie. A lot of camphor trees. The bottom part of those trees is painted white. This is actually a way to stop some pests from climbing and harming the tree. These days, people you see walking, going around outside are those people who have already got COVID in the latest wave. Those who haven't got it are probably not ready to come out as much for fear of getting the COVID. Actually, we plan to go back to the small village this afternoon. After the tour, we'll hand out a little bit more for children to see the views and maybe eat something and meet their grandmother again before we drive back to the small village. So it's a very short visit within just 2 days. It is short because we don't want to hand out too much, as you don't know what to expect, these days, and you don't know what kind of a mutation it can take for the disease. And we heard that there are some different strains of the COVID now, and some people who have got the second strain or even the third strain get very severe symptoms, even leading to death. Yeah, you know what? Actually, these days in China, in those big cities, the funerary houses are packed. And we have heard just on the news that how many old people, the celebrities, famous old people in different circles have died recently. In the USA, camphor tree is invasive, destroy native plants, especially in Florida. Is it a special kind of a paint? Reinfection risk is high. Yes, River. So we're not going to be here long. We just came here yesterday to visit my children's grandmother, my mother-in-law, for my wife, as it was her birthday yesterday. And today, this afternoon, we expected to go back. But look, for both adults, us, and our children, we need sometimes, go back to life to see the real life a little bit, if possible. So that's why we took this chance to come out. Yeah, if we didn't get the COVID, probably we would not have come out because rationally, you just don't want to do it, right? But now things we have got it, we decided to take a little bit risk of coming out for some little bit fun, but in a safe way. There's immunity for a while after an infection. That's right, River. But there are different strains. I don't know actually, because who knows? In China, there's not such a clarity of information. There's not such a clarity and transparency of information, never. So you can only try to guess from something circumstantial or indirect from the news. All right, now let's look back at the inner West Lake where we started. 50 minutes ago, we started somewhere there. A lot of boats, willow trees. All right, I think that's pretty much for us to cover the causeway. Let me turn around. The causeway is too long, 2.8 kilometers long. And actually we are closer to this end of the causeway. Let's go back, and towards the end of the tour, we'll just probably get a taxi there to move to a different place before we go back again to meet their grandmother. Let me now tell some stories about my wife. Actually, because this city is very meaningful for my wife and her parents. But of course, my father-in-law actually passed away 3 years ago. That's why my mother-in-law later decided to come out to work as a migrant worker again. And here's my wife, and she used to work in this city. Of course, we met in Shanghai. But before our encounter in Shanghai, my wife used to work in Hangzhou for many years. And she came here originally when she was only 16 years old. She didn't really go to school a lot. She finished after middle school. And then she came here with her parents who already worked here in Hangzhou before she arrived. And my wife told me that she used to do 3 different jobs in the same time here in Hangzhou. They just pointed at some mandarin ducks in the water. Let's get closer to the mandarin ducks. In Chinese culture, mandarin ducks stand for romance. And now you can see 3 pairs of mandarin ducks floating and running in the water right there. 3 couples. The male one is more colorful, more charming. The female one is smaller and not as colorful. All right, let's get closer there and talk before we finish. And yesterday we went to a place. We passed the place, and my wife said she used to work in that building, and in the same time she worked in 2 other places in the same area. And now let me tell you about the 3 jobs that she did in the same time. Of course, she actually did more than 3 different jobs, but for her, in the same time, she used to do 3 different jobs in a day. There are the 3 couples. And here you can see a family of squirrels. One after another, maybe a mother with a baby in this willow tree. Wow. Do you see the squirrel? Oh, there are more behind me. Children are excited. My wife is now 37 years old. About 20 years ago, she had 3 different jobs in Hangzhou, and let me now tell you about the jobs. She first worked in the morning as a housemaid to cook a breakfast for a Chinese origin American expat. It sounds maybe a little bit complicated. That man was actually employed by Huawei as an executive member, and he lived in a condominium. So he actually hired my wife, then a girl, to cook his breakfast and dinner. This is my wife did, and she worked there for a few hours in a day. And then in the daytime, my wife rode a bicycle to another place to work for a tea house. And that was the major job for a couple of hours continuously throughout the day, from maybe 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So before 9, my wife cooked before 9 and after 5, my wife cooked the breakfast and dinner for the man. And after that, my wife rode her bicycle again to a different place to do her night job. That was between 9 o'clock at night to 1 o'clock the next morning for a restaurant as an attendant. This is what my wife did. And she told me that at that time, out of 3 jobs, she could make 4,500 yuan a month. I guess 20 years ago, the conversion between Chinese RMB and the US dollars was probably 1 to 9. $1 to 9 RMB. So 4,500 yuan 20 years ago was actually some 500 or close to 600 US dollars a month out of 3 jobs. Wow, that is a lot of money then. Yeah, 4,500 yuan, close to 600 US dollars a month, but out of 3 jobs, River. To be honest, River, I would say 4,500 yuan, not yen, 20 years ago, it was hard-working, earned money. It was not a lot, especially considering 3 jobs, but she made more than most people, an average person, because she worked hard. Of course, just like many Chinese migrant workers even today, they work very hard. I would say, if you want to understand the Chinese or this nation better, from a single perspective, I would say it is the group of people who are migrant workers of Chinese. Of course, as a country, it's much more complicated. But based on my observation, Chinese migrant workers definitely define to a great extent the characteristics of this nation. Now, this girl, after 20 years, is now looking at the West Lake again with her children. The girl is 6 years old and the boy is 9 years old. They are 3 years apart. The girl is in grade 1. The boy is in grade 3. Both are very funny. They are in their funny age. Okay, my friends, I hope you have enjoyed the past 1 hour the scenery of the West Lake, a UNESCO heritage site in this poetic city of Hangzhou, the capital of Zhejiang province, before the sunshine. Thank you, Laurie, for saying that. Thank you very much for your support and attention. I'll see you next time. Let my children say goodbye to you, and with my wife, of course. Oh, snacking. Always snacking, especially the girl. My daughter is a snack queen. 好，我们今天就到这里吧。怪冷的，我们一会儿赶紧从这里撤了。跟观众们说一下，可以说一下。Thank you for watching. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye. Goodbye. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Thank you for your attention and support. Have a good day. Take care.